Hello and welcome to another episode of That Inner Voice podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer McKenzie, the conscious living coach, owner of Lunar Spirit Wellbeing. And please do remember to hit the subscribe button if you are watching on YouTube, and do subscribe on Apple, Amazon Music, and Spotify. So, welcome, listeners and watchers. Today I'm joined by Niyc Pidgeon, a positive psychologist and best-selling Hay House author. And welcome. How are you
So
doing, Niyc?
excited to be here. I'm good, really good. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Yes, very well. So you're all the way out in LA.
Yes, correct. Where the sun is shining more so than it was in Newcastle when I lived there.
Lovely. Yeah, it's pitch black here at the moment, but it's been a nice day. We're getting into spring, so that makes me happy.
It makes a
Seeing
difference, doesn't it?
the sunshine. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for coming on. And would you like to share with the watchers and listeners who you are and what you do and why do you do it?
Yeah, for sure. So my background, as you said, I'm a positive psychologist, and I've been working in that field of well-being and working with the science of happiness and how people and communities and businesses can thrive for the last, goodness, right now, 13 years. So I've been doing that for a long time. I also am founder and creator of the Positive Psychology Coach certification and founder of an online training company called Unstoppable Success. So we primarily help women to set up and scale online businesses and help them feel happier whilst doing it, because that's what it's all about, right? We want to feel joy in our day.
Yes. And there is something to be said about the positive influences, changing your positive mindset and the effects that has on our overall well-being. So for those that don't know, what is positive psychology?
Well, a lot of people think that it's just positive thinking, and it's actually, yes, it is that as well, but it's so much more than that. So positive psychology is the scientific study of what it is that makes us thrive. So in mental health, you have a continuum that we would look at, and we'd say you might be struggling or you might be experiencing mental health challenges in more of the clinical area, or you might be languishing in life. You might be moderately mentally healthy, or at the top tail end, you can be what we know as psychologically flourishing. So positive psychology takes people from essentially where they're at right now and helps them through interventions and exercises and using tools to become more mentally healthy through using the tools that are proven to work. So it's more than just like thinking positive and you'll have a good life. I think it gives you a lot of confidence and a lot of security knowing that researchers have been behind the scenes and they've been investigating this and they've done the work for us and it's proven that it's going to work.
Okay. That sounds like an amazing gift, really, to give people. And I'm a bit of a geek. I absolutely love science and spirituality. So I bridge the gap between the two and bring them together. And do you practice any spiritual practices at all?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All of the things. Yeah. So I have like my Kundalini practice. So I do Kundalini every day, yoga, meditation, chanting. I've got my sound bowls in my house, so I'm always using them. I've got my crystals. I've done a lot of trauma work and trauma healing. I have my visualization practices, meditations before bed, all of the things. I'm in it. I'm here for it.
Yes. Sound like my type of person. Science and spirituality combined.
Yeah, I think it makes a real difference to I work with women to help them experience more richness in their life. And a lot of times people are like, oh, I want to make more money. But actually the richness comes through the connection that you have with yourself, the trust that you have with yourself, the connection with a higher power and purpose. So there's so much juicy goodness in that spiritual practice that gives you the clarity and the confidence to go through your day.
I think that needs to come first before the money flows in, because it's all about energy, isn't it? And abundance then comes from an energy flow. So money is just another exchange of energy. So for those money blocks to move, that abundance blocks, we need to be able to receive. But that doesn't just mean receive money. It means receive love, receive help, and stuff like that, because those things block all your other blocks as well for receiving. So you're saying it to the universe, I don't want any help, I don't need anything. So then therefore it blocks the money as well. So yeah, energy is everything, isn't it?
So
And
true. So
yeah.
true. I feel like the more like space you can create within yourself through your spiritual practice and like opening up new areas and learning new things, the space you create within yourself, you then create that in your life.
Mhm.
And that then allows the new energy to flow in. But if
Mhm.
we just stay stuck and we stay as we are and we're not doing that internal excavation, then you're so right. Like, how can we grow and where can we go from there?
I like that analogy, external excavation. Yeah. That sounds like you're really digging deep and digging stuff out.
Yeah. You're like
Literally,
mining for gold inside
yeah,
yourself.
yeah. And that's where it is. That's where the power lies, isn't it? It's all starts within. So, Nick, have you always, been this successful? Because you have a pretty impressive business that you've set up and a huge team, and you're a best-selling Hay House author. But what did you do to get to that stage of success?
I used to be a total disaster.
So let's
Like,
talk about that. Let's talk about where you were then.
there's like a million different stories. Like the one that's just sprung to mind is like I used to have this really frantic energy about me, and I used to be continually in a rush, and I'd be the person that like loses her keys, and I'm like second guessing myself. Did I lock the door? Did I switch the straighteners off? And I'm in that like frantic energy. And that was literally my MO. And that was how I did life. And it was how I did business for a long time. And I think over the years, I've actually learned that as you slow down, you can actually speed up. And it was a harsh lesson for me because a lot of my lessons have come in very nasty little packages of getting really sick, for example, or not being able to continue to operate the way that I was doing because something had come and like completely take me out and give me the wake up call that I needed. So that's been a big change for me to now. I've always believed in designing your life,
Yeah.
but I really live that now. So rather than just being like, I'm going to design my life in the future, I design my life in the now, right now, to look after my needs and what it is that really nurtures me and nourishes me. And I think that does come back to what you mentioned about spiritual practice, because that is the slowing down or changing your brain waves and getting onto a different frequency every day so that actually you don't have to rush and things happen and it seems like everything just falls into place. But when I started, I didn't know that. I was like many of us, I didn't grow up around spiritual people. I didn't grow up around entrepreneurial people. So for me, it was my journey has been very much putting one foot in front of the other and trying to do my best and figure it out as I go. And in my teenage years, I was always academic and I was excelling at school, but I also loved to party. So I had this duality within me, as we all do. We've always got light and dark, and we've got the shadow side, and we've got the glory. And I think I had that dance between being the person that could go and drink all of the drinks when I was 16, 17 and have a party and then go to school the next day and get grade A's. So I've always had that little bit of a rebellious side within me. And I think just every step of the way, I've looked at what feels more on purpose for me to be directing my energy towards. And everything I do has to feel fun. It's one of my character strengths. But what does fun look like and feel like now I'm in my 30s versus what it looked like and felt like when I was in my teens or even in my 20s?
Okay. Is that very different now?
Very different.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, a lot of the things, a lot of the energy within it is the same. Like I still love music. And I would do in my spiritual practice like shamanic shaking and like shake out my whole entire body to move energy. And I would do that every day to like my favorite songs. I love driving with music. I even still go to like I'll go to a party or I'll go to a festival, but I'll do it in moderation.
Yeah.
So rather than it being the thing that was the routine, now I have much more high performance and success and spirituality routines And then the adventure side is something that is less frequent and still is fun, but I don't do it as like one of my main things.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I get you. So, what sort of struggles have you faced then within yourself with your own mindset and your mental health struggles?
I think I feel like if you wrote down what I'd experienced on paper, it would look like I'd had a really horrific life. And then if you put the other stuff side by side with it, it's like, oh, actually, she's had an amazing life. And I think you could choose one or the other, but we always get to recognize that it's always both.
Mm-hmm.
And when you bring your whole self to your experiences or to a podcast or to a video, then you're really able to thrive through the integration of both of those sides. So when I was 11 years old, 11 or 12, I was getting bullied really badly at high school. And girls are mean. Like
Mm-hmm.
girls at my high school wanted to fight, like physically fight. And I was so scared that I remember it was a Tuesday, and Tuesday was PE day. So I always felt really safe in structured lessons because the
Yeah.
teacher was at the front, you were in your seat. But in PE, that was where the bullies could get me. So that morning, I'd gone into my mum's medicine cabinet and I'd taken everything that she had and I'd taken all of the pills in a medicine cabinet and I'd try to take my own life.
Wow.
Now, at that early age, like I look back on that and I'm like, that was like a kid doing that. I feel like a different person now. But I was taken out of that school. I was homeschooled for 6 months. And then my mum and dad remortgaged the house so that I could go to a different school. And that was such an amazing change for me and something that ultimately helped me to thrive. And I went back and I like unpacked that experience many years later and I looked at like what was the trauma imprint that resulted from that and how did that actually inform the way that I showed up as an adult
Mm-hmm.
since then. So that was a really interesting thing to keep coming back to and look at because that frame of time when you're kind of between 10 and 13, it's really fundamental for your mindset and for your trauma and it's actually been an experience that I've got a lot of growth from because now I don't like bullying and it's something that I'm a stand for. It's something like I want people to be able to feel confident and feel empowered rather than disempowered, which is how I felt back then. So
Mm-hmm.
that's certainly something from my past that I've experienced. And then more recently, I mean, I've had many ups and downs through my life. And as a positive psychologist, I used to feel like this person that was showing up and pretending to be happy when I
Okay.
didn't feel happy inside.
Uh-huh.
Um, I felt like almost like ashamed to feel like I was having bad days. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to force myself to be this like dancing monkey all of the time, like, hey guys, like I'm the positive psychologist. And it was only when I got a little bit older and had my real like awakening phase where I was healing having been raped in 2012 and I really had to go inwards and do the work on for myself because it wasn't just like a low mood that I experienced, which I've experienced many times in my life. It was a total darkness and total terror where I was trying to get through and navigate an experience that I didn't feel comfortable or accomplished in handling for myself.
Yeah.
So I always recommend in that type of scenario, if it's a traumatic incident or an event, go and work with someone who's a qualified professional who has clinical expertise and experience. And I went to work with Rape Crisis. So they really helped me with understanding what I was feeling and talking it through and talking it out so that I could see the light at the end of the tunnel and I knew that there was going to be a better day again.
Yeah. I completely like resonate with a lot of the things that you're saying. I'm sitting here nodding away for those that are not watching. Because yeah, I totally agree with you when you get into that darkness. It's a different kind of place, isn't it? Than kind of just experiencing those ups and downs and mild sort of depression. I can totally relate to that darkness. So, and then having to unpack that, and that's really important, isn't it? When you're experiencing trauma. But do you feel like looking back, you didn't really understand it then, but then once you started doing the work on yourself and your training, did that open your eyes to a different way of looking at that with a different perspective?
100%, because I previously, like when I first went to write Now Is Your Chance, Now Is Your Chance was going to be a textbook because I was still in this very much like academic, like I'm a psychologist and I love science and all of this side of things. And then when I had this personal experience, I really had to put the positive psychology tools to the test. So as well as working with my counselor, I was also doing the work on myself and for myself every single day. So I had a new appreciation and a deeper connection with those tools because they were what helped me be able to not just survive, but go on to really, truly learn to live my best, most happiest life. So I look back on those times and I actually have so much gratitude. So after I'd done the work with the trauma side of things, I went on to work with my coaches and work on business things, and I'd been invited to speak. And I really felt called to share what had happened with that rape. And I felt really nervous to share it. And I think that it was a real almost like a journey of how comfortable I felt with my own process. So at first, I didn't even tell my family that it had happened. Then once I'd started to go to counselling, I told my parents and my brother. And then once I was out at the other end of the counselling, I started to tell a couple of friends. Then I showed up for International Women's Day, shared on a Facebook Live. Then I went and shared it on stage. And I think it gave me a lot of purpose because it gave me a fire inside of myself to link my business activities with the mission and purpose and the real deep reason of why I do what I do.
Yeah, I totally relate with that as well. Yeah. And yeah, how freeing did it feel though when you were able to speak from a place of the scar rather than the wound? I've heard
Yeah.
that a lot. It, for no personally for me, when I've had healed some parts of my life and then I've been able to then share them on podcasts and then share them speaking in front of people, I found it incredibly freeing but also incredibly empowering to see that so many people kind of went me too. Did you feel anything like that?
Yeah, I got that at the event that I was speaking at. So I'd won Young Entrepreneur of the Year back in 2015. I'd won that. And the next year, they'd invited me back to present it to the room of people. So that's when I first shared it from stage. And one of the things that actually motivated me to share it was that I felt so selfish if I didn't, because I had done my work. And I think that's an important point that you touch on there. It's not about like sharing it when it's going on, because you're already vulnerable and that can just add more pressure. So for me, I'm talking 2015 and this happened in 2012. So there was a long period of time where I'd been working on the healing for myself. And after I had shared it, even though my legs were shaking on the stage, I had a line of people, I've been in America too long, a queue of people waiting to speak with me afterwards. And their shares were horrific and they were also inspiring because they were sharing like, my grandfather molested me, or this is going on at this time, and it was super hard to hear. But it was amazing because they were saying to me, whilst they were sharing the story, they were saying, this has motivated me to go and do something about it, or here's what I've already done about it. And that felt like I'd done a job well done by speaking my truth and sharing that, because I could see literally in front of me the impact that it was having.
And you mentioned as well about the link between your mission and then, what you've been through, and linking that to your business and your purpose and your mission. Again, I think that is like, for me as well, that's like so similar, because I've been through addiction, multiple suicide attempts, self-harm, domestic violence, and sexual assault, and physical assault. And it's that, for me as well, is the driving force behind like what I do, because I don't want people to feel alone, and that in that, when they're in that darkness, I want people to feel like there are people that may, no two traumas are the same, but it doesn't, no one's worse or better, or it doesn't invalidate anybody, but there's some empathy, and there's someone else that says, I get it, and I've got you, I see you, I feel you, I hear you.
Yeah.
And I think that's so empowering for us women, and men, and everybody to come together and say, I've been suffering, but I come out the other end.
I
And for
think
those
it's
that are still
very,
suffering, they can see that there is hope and there is light, after these things.
it feels like it like connects us all together. So rather than being like, oh, a positive psychologist that's got everything sorted, that then isn't real.
Oh yeah, that's
You know what I
something
mean?
you
Become
said
like,
there as well, is because when you said about being like them, showing up, you didn't want to feel like you needed to have it all together,
yeah,
because you were a positive psychologist, but that's not real life, is it? It's
no,
it, no, it's not, because there are bad days, aren't there? And are they few and far between now, or because you've got those tools?
yeah, it's very different now. And if I look back, like for 10 years or more, I've applied a positive psychology intervention every single day. So I've really been living and breathing the work now for so long that when crazy disasters happen, like I actually lost 3 close friends to suicide, and it feels really hard, and it doesn't take away the pain, but you also feel stronger and more resourced to be able to handle the challenges when they do show up. So I think that's the difference with the journey of personal growth. You can never lose the work that you've already done.
Yeah.
It's always going to stay with you, and you've already grown. And it's just that next layer and that next level is going to help you grow even more, even if when you experience it at the time, it feels hard.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. And do you think then in business, it's important for soul-led business owners like yourself to express those vulnerabilities that still happen, to still show up as authentically as possible?
Yeah, 100%. I think like what I mean, if you talk about business, like what is your differentiator, or what is your obvious edge in the marketplace? And the easiest place to find your obvious edge is with you, because there's no one like you. There's no one like, you've got an amazing story. I'm like, I've never heard a story of someone like that's experienced everything that you do. So that sets you apart immediately. And you're like, whoa, like she's been through that. Or here's the way that it happened in my life, or here's what I love and here's what I enjoy, or here's what I've learned about that. People are going to connect with you because you are more you.
Yeah.
And I also think it's a great space to be inside of yourself, where you're not hiding pieces or stories or parts of you. And it's like everything that you experience, you're like your fullest, freest self.
Mhm.
And that comes through everything that you do. So it means you show up with a new level of clarity and confidence in your business. It means because you've done your healing work, you're actually able to make more empowered decisions. It means when you go, let's say you've got a coaching business, you go and coach a client, you're able to hold a bigger space for them, and you're able to be the strength for them when they can't see it for themselves, because you've already been through so much. And it's like, actually, I know you can get through this. And it gives you a lot of certainty. And it just, I think it really just helps you be like a bigger, greater version of yourself.
What would you say then? So I know you work with female entrepreneurs. What would you say then to a female entrepreneur that's listening now, or watching us, that is afraid to show up as herself, A, and then B, think that the level of success is out of reach for that person?
Mm.
Because
First
there's
of
two
all,
things that I see a lot and I've experienced myself. Oh, I can't get to there. Why me? And it'd be like, well, actually, look how far I've come. So, what's your take on those two questions?
well, first of all, I'm from Newcastle, so you can definitely all do it. I think it's remembering, like, yes, we're all unique, but no one's special.
Mm,
So it's like we're all unique and we've all got different journeys. But if you put one foot in front of the other and you're consistently committed to creating an impact and having a contribution in the world and having a journey of success, because it's not a goal, it's not a destination, it's a journey that you're on. So I think that fixed mindset of I've got to get over there and I'm over here right now is actually one of the things that can bring up anxiety or comparison. Whereas when we're like, okay, we're on this amazing journey and I'm holding the vision, but I'm also trusting the process that I'm in and on right now, then it is just finding the joy in the moment, finding the learnings in the moment and keeping your eye on the goal and staying focused towards that. So I'd say if people are thinking like, I can't do it, it's meant for someone else, just get started. Just get started. There's a amazing tool from Positive Psychology called the Best Possible Self, which helps you visualize the best version of yourself in the future when everything has gone as well as it possibly could. And it really helps you to maintain that level of hope and optimism towards the goal whilst you do the work in the right direction. And then I would say for those of you who are feeling nervous about showing up, I felt like that when I started in online business. And I felt like, number one, a total weirdo because I was talking about positive psychology and nobody knew what it was back then. And then I felt like an imposter. So, that imposter syndrome, like, who am I to be doing this? And I was worried about my friends at high school who are still friends now. I was worried about what they would think of me. And would they be like, who does she think she is, showing up online and writing a book? So I had to deal with that. And luckily by that point, I had been practicing positive psychology for a while. So it doesn't mean that thoughts and the feelings aren't going to come up. We're all human. It's more about having the tools to know what to do when they do. So I remember at the time I was in New Zealand and I actually looked for Kundalini yoga class because I've been practicing that for 9 years. And I knew that was my go-to, but I couldn't find one. But when I searched for it, this thing popped up and it was like a manifestation class. So I was like, oh, I'll go to that instead. So I went to this little workshop at a friend's house. She became a friend. Her name was Jess. And she was doing like a arts and crafts manifestation meditation workshop. So I walked out of that workshop with a little postcard with glitter glue all over it, my own affirmation statement, which was, I am fearlessly visible and I boldly shine my light. And it stayed with me since then because it was so powerful. And I stuck the postcard on a notice board. I was staying with my brother in New Zealand at the time, and I had him in tears laughing at me because he was like, oh my God, why do you think the postcard's going to help you? Oh my God, you're so funny, Nick. And he was just making fun of me. And I was literally like, just watch me. I know that this is going to work. So I put my trust in the tools of spirituality and positive psychology, stuck this mantra up on the wall and lived by it every day. I was like meditating on it. I would see it when I was walking past. I would tell myself it in the shower. And that's what helped encourage me to just get out there and just put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. And that's having that belief, isn't it? Visualization and affirmations, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. I know a little bit of positive psychology. I'm not trained in it or anything, but I understand the concept of it, and I think it is absolutely amazing. how like deep it goes, and how mind changing, life changing these practices are. I'm an NLP coach and a holistic and spiritual teacher. So it works, and you can see it, can't you? And having that visualization, but you do get those people that think you're a bit wacky, or think, how is that going to just block that noise out and just keep going, don't you? And like keep that vision and that feeling strong. A lot of it is about how you're feeling inside, because our feelings create our thoughts create our actions create our reality, and but yeah, it all starts with those little things and those little steps, doesn't it?
Exactly. And just looking at what the compound effect is of that, it doesn't have to be that you go from where you are now to the highest version of your success in one step. But when you put consistent action and intention in over time, that has a compounding effect, which means it's like the snowball effect. And then all of a sudden you're getting the results. And it's because of the things that you did a few months ago.
Yeah. So what was I going to say? Yeah. So you said also, I can't remember what I was going to say now. It's just totally gone out of my head. You said about, that's it, enjoying the process, because that's a really important point, I think, like to make as well. It's like we often have this goal, don't we, and think, oh my God, that seems so out of reach, or we're so focused on that, we forget to actually enjoy the process, the process of getting to know ourselves, process of healing, process of like the excitement of learning new skills as well. So it's often about like enjoying that journey, isn't it, on the way up?
Yeah, exactly. Because like, what is up? Do you know what I mean? Like, where is that? And I think it's rather than thinking of it this like ladder and this is where I've got to get to, I think about it as like this spiral of transformation and evolution, and up is actually like through, and it's the process of experience, that it's more like growth and expansion that gets you to that thing that you're thinking of as up. And it's like, how can you become like a bigger, stronger version of yourself? And that's the thing that's going to get you the success.
I like that. Yeah, it's a spiral rather than just straight up the ladder.
Yeah, upward spiral. I sometimes think about it as snakes and ladders, though. You're like, I'm on my way up, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm on my way down again.
Yeah, because it's a roller coaster, isn't it? And if you found that when you've been on your spiral of success, have you found there's been ups and downs? Have you found in business or life where you think, oh, this is going to work, this is what I want to do, and then you've kind of changed direction? Or have you always been like this sort of same vision and you've got there? Or have you had to twist and turn?
There's been a lot of changes. The sentiment has stayed the same. So since I started as a speaker and a positive psychologist, I just knew I wanted to help people. Like that was my like inner guidance system. I was like, I want to help people. I know that entrepreneurship is a vehicle to help people experience more joy and more personal power, and then unstoppable success within yourself first, and then within your business and your reality. And then that's almost been like the like North Star, or the guiding light, if you like, because whatever goes on around it in the business, it's like, is this furthering my mission, and is it in alignment with the mission, or is it perhaps a distraction? Now, over the last 7 years since I last left the UK and set up my online business, we've grown to like a multi-million-dollar per year business, multi-million-dollar per like month business, which feels amazing.
Wow.
And if I look at the ups and downs through that, what I experience now is almost like contractions and expansions.
Okay.
So sometimes, like, I'm a real introvert as well, so I need a lot of spaciousness on my own, and I have these like incubation periods where it might feel like I'm going through something, or something's happened in my life, or whatever, you're handling something. Like last year, it was my health. So I found out I had toxic mold poisoning, and I had brain scans, and what showed up on the brain scans was that I had PTSD once.
Yeah.
And I was really grateful for it, because when you know, you can do something about it.
Huh.
And it almost put me into this period of like going 100% in looking after myself. So it meant that I was going faster and looking after myself and not as fast in the growth of the business.
Mhm.
But what actually ended up happening, and this is always going to be true when you favor self-care and you favor spiritual growth and personal growth, when I came through that period of healing and going inwards for a couple of months, like August, I took completely off. And I just had a lot more spaciousness. I looked after myself really well. I was doing like 3 hours a day of these like medical treatments. Now I look at how good I feel because of those decisions to feel good first and look after myself. And me and the business is going a million miles faster because of it.
Yeah. Comes back to that self-care first, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Slowing down, speeding up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's amazing. So, and you said that you've written a book, you're a best-selling author. What is your book about?
So the book is a 30-day guide to living your happiest life using positive psychology. So it gives you a tool or a tip every single day that you can use. So it becomes like a fun challenge for you to do this thing every day. And it's super easy. It could be 1 minute or 10 minutes or whatever. And that little book, it is literally saved lives. Like I get messages all of the time saying, Nick, I really didn't feel good. I really didn't feel good. And certainly in England, what I noticed is, it might be different now. I obviously haven't been there for 7 years, but since I've moved to America, I see people are much more willing to go and work with therapists. It's much more normal over here, and even kids. Whereas in the UK, what I experienced was the therapist isn't accessible, or there's too much of a long waiting list, or it feels like shameful to go and ask for help. So how can we have people access the help that they want and need in a way that is faster and more familiar for them? So that might come through an Instagram account, where you find a mental health account and you see a reel and you're like, oh my God, this has really helped me today. Or it might come through something like a book. And I just feel so grateful that I wrote a book that has had that profound impact on people's coffee tables and in their daily lives.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and that it's still pretty much the same. Healthcare is hard to access. The waiting list for counselling through the NHS is about 18 months.
Wow.
And for ASD and ADHD assessments, I am on the waiting list. It's nearly 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's helped through the NHS, and there's we're raising all this awareness, but there isn't the capacity for the medical professionals to
And
deal
the
with it.
support.
It's the system, it's the demand, it's the lack of funding. But then you're right, that's where people like like your books, the Instagram accounts, people like this podcast, where we can give people tips that they can actually help themselves whilst they're waiting for medical intervention, if they so need that later down the line. But yeah, it's a bit of a shambles over here, if I'm honest. And it's sad to see that there are lots of people that are feeling failed by the system and not getting the help that they need. And some people can't afford to then have private therapy, which that again is why the books and the podcasts and things are so valuable, that people will then learn how to help heal themselves.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much out there online now that you can get access to. I just think it's amazing, because imagine like our parents growing up, they wouldn't have had the internet.
Yeah,
So if you had something that was going on, you needed to deal with it. Like, where did you go? Like, we're in this amazing era of technology where resources are more accessible than ever before online, even if we can't get them in person.
yeah, yeah. and it's kind of exploded, hasn't it, really, in the last sort of 4 years, I would say, like the online space and the if you look for the bad influences out there, but there's a lot of good quality help and authentic guidance there for people that are struggling.
Yeah.
And it just depends on what you look for. So what you look for, you shall get. you know
Exactly.
So yeah, there's thank God for the internet. But yeah, I remember when I'm 40 this year, so it's like when I first started having mental health problems as a teenager, I didn't have a clue what to do. There was nothing. And it just all got, swept under the carpet and not talked about and unresolved and all that stuff, and carried it into later adulthood. But now there is that help for children, for teenagers, and a safe place that they can get help, which is amazing. Because like even then, like our parents, but it was taboo. Nobody could talk about anything like that, could they, back then?
Doesn't it? It's definitely, even like kids now know the words and they know the terms, they know what mental health is, or they know how to verbalize their emotions. Like it's actually one of my favorite things in positive psychology, when I see, like, let's say I work with a mom or with a dad, then they go back to their home and they have a conversation with their teenager or with their kid, and they're talking with positive psychology tools or interventions, and then that kid has a breakthrough and they experience or do something differently in their life, that ripple effect through the world is like, I honestly believe, and I'm going to fight for it to change the world. Because I think that when we have the tools, or we have the experience through our own story on our own, like trying and testing and seeing what works, we can go and help each other. And the more that we help each other, the easier that it is to heal and rise together.
Exactly. And the power is in community, isn't it? It is coming together and sharing our experiences and sharing our expertise and healing together. Yeah, it's a lot of times I think people can feel alone and like nobody else is going through it. But yeah, I strongly believe in the power of collective healing and the power of community and speaking up. That's, we've got a voice, use it for good.
Exactly. Yes to that.
Yes. So I always ask my guests 3 questions at the end of the podcast. So the podcast is called That Inner Voice. So Nick, what does your inner voice say to you?
My inner voice, it's something that I've really got used to listening to more intently over the years. I've had this sense of knowing inside of me that I can be, do, create, and have anything that I want in this life. And even though when I had no reason to believe that, that's always been something that was like a tiny seed inside of me. So I was listening to that seed and helping strengthen it and helping reinforce that inner voice. And for me, my inner voice, as well as hearing what she says, it also comes as a feeling. So I feel it literally inside, like my stomach and inside my gut, as like this hit. And in human design, I'm a splenic projector type. So that means you need to listen to the intuitive hit as soon as you get it and act on it. Because if you go back on the intuition, you go back on the inner voice, that's not your highest path and purpose, and it won't work out as you want it to.
Interesting. I like that. And then the second question is, what are you most excited about right now?
Oh my God, everything. Can I say everything? I have so much good that's going on. Our positive psychology coach certification is my favorite thing that I've ever created. So that feels really special to be certifying people in the tools. I'm also writing another book, which is a positive psychology informed approach for suicide prevention. So that feels really important and it feels very energizing. Now, I never thought I would be someone that became obsessed with suicide, But when you think about the potential for the positive impact in that space through positive psychology and noticing that cross section, it lights me up because I'm like, oh my goodness, we can actually do something about this.
I've just got
So,
goosebumps.
so good, right?
Yeah, as you've just been talking about that. Ooh, that's confirmation, like from my guides.
Thank you.
That's like, yeah, that
Thank
I want
you.
to do that too. Yeah, that's really important work. Something I'm really passionate about is suicide prevention. Obviously, being there myself many a time and losing many a people along the way, which, yeah, that's great work. Good for you. Much needed. And the third question is, what's the best bit of advice you've ever been given by somebody else?
It was a piece of advice that I really hated at the time because it felt so far away from the way that I was acting. And it was back at that time where I was showing up as a positive psychologist that didn't feel positive. And it was a really, really simple piece of advice from a mentor I was working with who said, you just need to be yourself and share your story. Now, I couldn't quite grasp that at the time because I wasn't feeling it. But later on, when I started to live it and try it and test it, I looked back and I was like, oh, that was actually great advice. Even if I didn't feel like I was ready to receive it at the time, I was a little bit uncoachable back then.
Okay. That's a whole nother topic.
Right?
Being uncomfortable. Yeah. But that great bit of advice.
Mm.
And so did you take on board that advice?
Yeah, 100%. And I think I got asked this in like Forbes or Entrepreneur magazine or something. It was like, these legendary entrepreneurs share what their number one piece of advice was that they'd received from a mentor. And that has always stood out as the thing because there's so much power in simplicity. If you look at people like Zig Ziglar, who are like the original coaches, all of the things that they communicate is so simple. And that's, we get so like wrapped up in like, what is the answer? How do I figure it out? And it's like, actually show up as yourself, listen to your truth, live on purpose, be yourself, and everything will unfold with perfection.
I think we overcomplicate a lot of things, or try and add a lot of fluff or reinvent the wheel, want to be unique and stand out. But spirituality and actual kind of coaching and being authentic is very simple. I totally agree with you there. Yeah.
So true.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed our enlightening conversation. I'm sure everybody who listens and watches will get value out of what you said and what you brought to the podcast. So thank you. I appreciate your
Thanks for having
time.
me. It's my joy, literally my joy to be here. So thank you.
So where's the best place for people to find you? I'm going to put your links in the show notes as well.
Fabulous. So niycpidgeon.com is the website. My social media favorite place to hang out is on Instagram. So I love connecting with you all and voice noting over there. That's literally where I hang out. And then let me share a link. We've got like a link for a free copy of the book. So I'll give you that as well.
Fabulous. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Nick. You've been a great guest, and thank you again.
Thank you. Have an amazing rest of the day.
Thank you. And that was another episode of That Inner Voice podcast. Do catch me again next time. Bye-bye.